The bush rag is another form of camouflage suit. It's a bit different in that it's not designed to be used as a crawl suit as the ghillie suit is. With the bush rag, it's more for doing a stock on your feet. So what it does is it covers your torso and it covers your head area and of course the back. So what you're going to do is you're going to get some of that same military netting and you're going to cut out a first chunk, which I've already cut out. You're going to cut out a piece that's roughly 6 feet long and 2 feet wide. What you're going to be doing then is making it into kind of a poncho. So you're going to cut out a little head area, and you don't want to overcut. You don't want to cut a hole that's too big so that when you put this on, the material hangs low. You want it to come as close to your neck as possible. Okay? And before I start tying in my burlap, I'm just going to throw it over my head, make sure I'm close. There we go. So I've got my basic dimensions, and I might want to tailor up a couple pieces that are hanging too long. So once you cut out your mesh, you're going to cut out a piece for your head. Now the head piece should roughly be about 18 inches by a foot, and that's going to be, of course, covering your head, and you're going to sew that into a boonie cap, a PC, a watch cap, whatever you have. Once again, you're going to be tying in your burlap pieces. This is stuff that we've already strung, and what we've kind of done is we've left a large portion of it undyed because we're going to be matching it to this desert grassland. So burlap, which hasn't been dyed, does have that nice natural color that blends well. Also, we've got a very light green with a lot of yellow in it that kind of looks like a dried grass, maybe grass that's, you know, halfway dead. To get these lighter colors, you're going to get a regular clothing dye, and certain manufacturers write R-I-T-E dyes. And you'll probably want to get a yellow, a dark green, a lime green, and a brown, and also black too if you need it. So you'll first want to do is read the directions to the dye, and you'll dye your dark greens first. Say you'll take your green dye, you'll make your batch, and you'll dye your darker colors. But then you're going to have some leftover water that still has some dye pigmentation. So what you can do to get, say, a lighter green to match maybe, see how this is too dark? You'll get your regular burlap, and in the same waters, this has still a little green tint. And what we did is after we did the dark green stuff, we took the burlap and dunked it in just to give it a tint of a green. Here's another variation. We mixed some yellow dye with the dark green, just a tad of the dark green, to get more of a lime green. And so what you might want to do is familiarize yourself with the area you're going to be stocking and bring in some clippings of the vegetation. And keep in mind that when you're going to be doing your stock, that you're going to be at a certain level. You're going to be using vegetation like this when you're using the bush rag, this kind of crouching level. Whereas if you were doing a belly crawl stock, you'd probably use, in this area, if you can pan over, you see the little brighter greens, more sand type colors. So this light green is looking pretty good. It might be a little too green for here, so when you do your ties, you might take a couple strands of your light green, get some of your undyed material, which you've stripped, and then kind of match it together. And when these are together, you know, it pretty closely hits upon whatever sawgrass or brush that this is. So I'll take this. Once again, this is too long. I'm going to cut a proper length. And once again, scissors would probably be a little more expedient. So I'll get my webbing back out. What you might want to do is you might want to get all your clippings all cut and ready so you can just sit down and just start tying in. So you're not getting up, cutting a piece, and coming back down. You just sit down, you've got your 100, 200 pieces of clipping, and you just start tying in. This is a bit too thick. I like to get about little 20-strand pieces. And if you notice, if you have any tears, like right down here, you've kind of got a little tear in the webbing. And since it's surplus, you're buying it used, this is an opportune time to actually use your burlap ties and do a little repair work. And if you, for instance, say cut the aperture for your head a little too large, you might want to just cinch it down with a couple of the ties. So, that said, we should talk about the actual burlap material. Burlap is ideal for these camouflage suits because it's a thick fiber that takes dye rather easily, but it also has a rigidity to it. So what it will do is it will stand out, it will fluff out more, breaking up the human form, creating a more moundish, rounded off shape than the angular lines of a human body. So cotton, which is another type of fiber that someone might use, it's a finer, smaller fiber, so it doesn't have as much rigidity and it'll lay flatter. So you might want to keep away from cottons unless you're allergic to burlap. Some people do have hay fever or grass allergies, and this might aggravate them. So if you do have allergies, you might want to stick with a fiber that you're not allergic to, but if not, you want to stick with the burlap. And once again, this is all burlap pieces that we have stripped from burlap bags, and we've gone over that. A little hint with stripping burlap bags is that you want to strip them when they're dry, and maybe even before you dye them. So you'll strip all the strings out of the burlap bags, get some nice bundles, and you'll dye the bundles rather than dyeing the bags first. Here's one that we've just started, is that you're going to tie your darker burlap pieces onto the side, the darker side of the webbing. This military webbing, as you can see, has a lighter side, and then it has a darker side. So tie the darker pieces into the darker side, and also you're going to be tying in lighter pieces onto the light side. So therefore you have a reversible camouflage suit. You can wear the lighter side, and let me see, I think we have one already made up. Here's a full bush rag. Now this is the body section. Here you have your lighter side, which would work well with, you know, these grasses and the desert tones, and then you have a darker side for more of your forest looks. Another thing about the bush rag is that you can actually push through material from the other side. So you could be in a certain area, say a chaparral, which isn't completely light, isn't completely dark, and you can kind of mix and match. You might start with your lighter side and then push through your greens and some of your browns. So therefore you have a product or a camouflage system that's very versatile. So we've pretty much completed this bush rag. To put it on, you just slap it over. And since you've got your poncho, you're going to need a belt to cinch around your waist. Here's just a regular webbing belt. What you want to do is buy the lighter type and dye one side a darker green. So therefore you have a type of reversible belt. Of course, this silver gold buckle is going to have to go. Web belts come with a black metal. If not, you can just spray paint this, but I'm going to use this for now. So, cinch down on this. And when you put your your web belt in, make sure you take some of your ties and make sure that they drape over so you don't have just a belt sticking out. For the headpiece,